Hello, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about the book 1984. The book 1984 was actually written by George Orwell. It was one of the last works he did in his life, which to me adds a little bit more weight to the work, considering the fact that people don't typically have time to waste when they're toward the end of their lives. Another such work that you may be interested to look at is a documentary called America, Freedom to Fascism. It was written by Aaron Russo, and that details the different inequities and things with American laws as they surround federal income tax and different things. Very, very good documentary, and this book is a very, very good book as far as I'm concerned. Now, the horse of comparison, comparing modern society to 1984, has probably been beat thoroughly. All right, that horse has been beat. It's already dead. However, it's still nonetheless a very, very good comparison, especially now in the US in 2014. Now, a few things I'm going to go over in here, but the first thing I want to just bring up, uh, a lot of you may have the question, does a totalitarian society have to be over the top? Because, of course, when you read the book 1984, they're all different sorts of things. There are telescreens in every room. There are kids who are all public members of the spy league. You know, they're all different sorts of things. They come out and say that they're going to outlaw the orgasm and different things. You know, and it's very, very overt. But I would make the argument that totalit totalitarian society doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be over the top. In fact, I would say that the more covert it is, that the more successful it may be. Now, certain things, of course, have to be changed. One of those is the definition of freedom. In fact, in the book, uh, Winston admits that there are no laws, therefore you can't break the law because there are no laws. However, there are certain things that you may do which possibly could get you in trouble. But by definition, there are no laws in Oceania. So everyone's free, right? Well, just different things like that, right? Now, if you look at current society, you don't necessarily need telescreens. You don't necessarily need junior spy league. You don't really need anything like that, really, because we already provided everything. So let's just go over this here. The 2 minutes hate. The book starts off with the 2 minutes hate, where everyone in the party, of course, everyone with blue overalls or black overalls, they all have to attend the 2 minutes hate every morning. And the purpose of the 2 minutes hate, to me, is just to remind people what they have to be thankful to Big Brother for. It shows Eurasian troops. It shows them marching. It shows them killing. You hear women and children screaming. You hear men being stomped on. This is, of course, what would happen if Big Brother weren't there, because, of course, at the end of every 2 minutes hate video, everything melts down and you see the face of Big Brother, a youthful face, a mustachioed face, the face of someone who can protect you from anything. This is who they owe everything to, this man, Big Brother. And that's reminded to them every single day. Now, you could say, well, of course, yeah, we don't have a 2 minutes hate in current society, but what we do have is something that's not 2 minutes. I think they probably go about 30 minutes each. I call the 2 minutes hate the news. Now, you can say, well, no, the 2 minutes hate isn't like that, but let's just go over it. Let's really look at what local news and what national news really goes over. All right. Tell me if it's not true that in your city, your municipality, don't you know how many people died last night? Don't you know how many people were raped and killed and criminalized the previous night just by looking at your local news every morning? Don't they tell you that? Don't they tell you every horrible thing that happened in your society? In fact, I would make the argument to say that local news has almost the sole purpose of really just destroying your faith in common man. Now, they do show where other things happen. They show where there are positive stories occasionally. One good doer, one person who's done something nice for children, or who started an organization that's helping out needy children or something like that. But of course, that's always the exception, not the rule, right? Because of course, crimes happen every day, but only occasionally does someone help out someone else. Of course, the police help out someone every day, and they're very, very quick to hop onto those stories. But far and wide, people are horrible people, and we need to be defended from them by the powers that be. Now, in a broader sense, let's look at national news, because of course national news is supposed to tell us about world events and different things. But of course, one of the things that national news also does is it gives a big, giant, loudspeaker to the people who are supposed to be using terror to frighten us every day. Think about the fact that you can look on CNN, MSNBC, you can look at all of these different large networks, and you can hear where there's supposed to be someone who's gonna, try and attack America, someone who's advocating the kidnapping and torturing and killing of Americans abroad, and also even here in America, advocating attacks here in America. Now, why in the world would you give a loudspeaker to someone who uses communication as a way to spread hate, and someone who uses communication as a way to spread their ideology, which in fact is undefeatable in a sense, because the war on terror is not a war on anything physical. It's not a war on anything tangible or anything like that. It doesn't have a territory. In fact, terrorism is something that's an idea, and it's a tactic that you use in war. In fact, there's a saying that says that terrorism is poor man's war and war is rich man's terrorism. And that to me rings very, very true. Uh, what other reason would other people in another country, some of which people in Afghanistan and Pakistan don't even know what's going on, a few miles down the street from them. They've never even known, let alone how someone lives in America. What does that even concern them for? They're just busy trying to live their day-to-day lives in their huts. Nah, there has to be something else that's going on that causes them to really care about what we're doing here. Now, the second point is political orthodoxy, because in the book, political orthodoxy was something that every party member was seen that they mandatorily have to uphold. You can't be seen in certain places. You can't look a certain way. You can't do certain things unless the thought police could potentially pick you up as a member of the Brotherhood, someone who's a follower of Goldstein. Well, how does political orthodoxy follow up in modern society? Their titles and slogans that people are assigned. Someone who's a crazy fanatic or someone who's a conspiracy theorist, right? Of course, if you're ever pegged to be a conspiracy theorist, you can never really hold any serious media position, because of course you're a conspiracy theorist. That means that you don't believe in reason and in logic at all. Well, in fact, to me, what being a conspiracy theorist means is that you think for yourself. In fact, there was a story that came out recently that found that 50% of Americans are actually conspiracy theorists. So, if there's something wrong with everyone else, who's the problem really with? Is the problem really with you? I mean, all because you believe that, let's be really, really blunt and really, really serious here. What is a conspiracy? A conspiracy is more than one person who's conspiring to carry something out. And of course, what is a theory? A theory means that you have an idea that something happened, but you can't exactly prove it. So do you mean to tell me that the government doesn't lie, that they can't confirm nor deny many, many things? In fact, they still classified the files surrounding John F. Kennedy's death. It's past 40 years now. They're still keeping them secret. Now, we all know that certain things happen with that, but does that mean the government's going to admit to them? No. Now, think about it like this. How many things in government get done that only one person has to do it? All right. That means that conspiracy has to be something that happens on a regular basis in government. Now, how many times does government also disallow information to go out? Well, a lot, right? I mean, Freedom of Information Act requests are being turned down at an all-time high right now under the Obama regime. So what we really have to wonder here is, when they say, what is a quote conspiracy theorist, is that a self-serving thing or is it not a self-serving thing? I mean, simply by denying that you did something, you can say that someone's a theorist, and simply by colluding to do anything in government, which most things are done in a collusive manner, pretty much you can call just about anything someone says a conspiracy theory. Now, whether what they're saying is true or not lies in your hands, because you can always deny it. Of course, we know that they lie all the time. In fact, the former press secretary was talking about drone strikes and different things. He was told at one point that he should simply denied that it even existed. Reporters would ask him about drone strikes, and he would say, "What are you talking about? They don't exist." So they can dictate reality, and by dictating reality, they can also dictate who's a conspiracy theorist. Even if the person's right, it's the title that stands. It's a title that means something. It's not whether the person was right. It's the slogan you use and the title you give the person to discredit someone, not the merit of the argument that they're arguing. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the telescreens, of course. That was one of the big things in the book, was telescreens in every room. So, of course, even though Winston himself acknowledged the fact that it was completely inconceivable that they were looking at every telescreen all the time, the fact of the matter was you never knew when your number was going to be called. You never knew if they were, if they weren't. Therefore, Big Brother maintained his omniscience and omnipresent stance everywhere in Oceania, because you never knew. And the thing is, even though we don't have telescreens, do we not have smartphones? How many people have smartphones who are listening? How many people out there, surf online? And we all know at this point that all of our searches are being kept. We all know that everything that we pretty much do out there is being kept and traced and database somewhere. Now, the thing is here, since we all know that, do you really need a telescreen? Do you really need for someone to look at you? Or are you simply offering the means for them to do that in a more covert manner? We know that they can listen to the microphone on your telephone without even turning it on, or without it looking like it's turned on, or and I'm not trying to be completely paranoid here, but the point is, you can Google all these things and you can find out that they're actually true. You don't need a telescreen. You carry it with you. Most people do. Now, the next thing is child spies, because of course in the book there were pretty much every child was a member of the child spying corps or whatever, and so therefore they practice on spying on their parents, which turned the family itself not into something that was loving and not something that helped to empower the children. In fact, the children just used it, and the party just used it as the perfect spying unit, because who knows a person better than their children? And of course, the children want to please Big Brother. Therefore, they're going to find something with their parents, and they're going to look for a way to rat their parents out. It's completely, the parenting instinct is completely pretty much removed. You're supposed to love your kids, but you're supposed to love Big Brother more. So when you get ratted on by your children to Big Brother, well, then that just means that your child has reached the pinnacle of what they need to be. But of course, this is a dystopic future. That wouldn't happen in real life, right? Well, there's something else that can be done in current times, and that's social networks. You don't have to have a child spy, because most children and most adults plug everything that they do into a social network. So not only do they know who you associate with, how you associate with that person, they know your aspirations, they know your pictures, they see videos from kids who do things that they're probably going to regret when they get older. They keep all that stuff, and they have all that stuff. You give it over to them willingly. So does someone really have to spy on you? No, they don't. All they have to do is just have access to a social network site where you give everything over voluntarily, and they'll know everything about you. They'll know where you're going to be on Saturday. They'll know where you're not going to be on Saturday. They're going to know what you're thinking about most moments, because they can just tune into your Twitter feed. Now, the next thing is double speak and double think. Double speak and double think is a premise in the movie. It has to be maintained by most people, because the way that Winston coined it was that a person's ability to swallow whatever is fed to him. For example, first, we've been at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. And next thing you know, we're at war with East Asia, and we're at peace with Eurasia. Well, in fact, there was a point where in the book there was a big thing where, and this was during the middle of Hate Week, where there was a person speaking, and it turned out that they switched it during the middle of the big thing, and pretty much he kept going as if nothing actually changed. and everyone kept listening, and then their hate just transferred from Eurasia to East Asia just as quickly. And next thing you know, well, everyone is just like nothing ever happened. And that's where doublespeak comes in, doublethink comes in, because you have to be able to swallow and you have to be able to discard certain facts just as quickly as the party can feed them to you. Now, what does that mean in real life? And how does that affect us in real life? Well, you heard the term Chinese water torture, and you've heard the term torture. In fact, back during Vietnam, there was a American POW, and he was on TV where they released a video, and he was admitting to all sorts of things, right? But he was blinking in Morse code the word torture. And so everyone knew in America the fact that he had been tortured meant that you couldn't actually listen to anything that he said, because he was only doing what his captors wanted him to do. He was only saying what he had to say to stop the pain and stop the torture, right? Now, why is it so much better when we do it? Well, maybe it's because we give it the word enhanced interrogation, right? Because of course it's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation. And all because they have lawyers that can tell you, oh no, it's okay, it's constitutional because it's enhanced interrogation, it's not torture. I don't know how many of you actually heard about the things that went on in Abu Ghraib, not just the stuff they told you on the news, but the actual things that happened. The torture of children in front of their fathers, the torture of women, and the torture of children. Now, if that's not bad, I don't know what is. But still, we're the shining city on a mountain. We're the people who are above moral reproach. But you wonder why people say things about America that they say. Well, maybe you should look at the things that we do and not just listen to what the media tells you. But of course, like I said, that gets to double speak and double think. Even small things, like for example, the invasion of North Georgia. No, it was South Georgia. By Russia. It was all over Western media that Russia invaded South Georgia for nothing, when in fact South Georgia actually attacked some Russian bases, and they retaliated. Russia retaliated. It's the same thing with Ukraine right now, where these were peaceful protesters who were trying to overthrow the Ukrainian government because there was too much of an influence of Russia. Well, if you ever looked at the quote peaceful protesters who were protesting in Ukraine, you'll notice that they weren't peaceful at all. They had Molotov cocktails, they had guns, they attacked these buildings, these government buildings and different things, which, hey, all right, if they're overthrowing their government, so be it. But don't mislead the entire country on the news saying that these are peaceful people when they're obviously not. They're holding riot shields that they took away from the police, and they're firing guns at police, and they're throwing and setting fire to buildings and different things all around. So the point that I'm making here is that doublespeak and doublethink is very, very alive in modern times. And the last thing I want to go over here is the book pretty much ends in the ministry of love, because we all know that every thought criminal is going to eventually be caught by the thought police. And of course, they all end up in the ministry of love, which of course in itself is a perversion of terms, because what happens in the ministry of love is torture itself. So they love you, so they torture you. And that's why everyone feared it. So you can say, well, there's really not a ministry of love in the current U.S., right? And I have to concede there's not a ministry of love. There's not a set place in the U.S. where you can be a thought criminal and you may end up going there and being tortured. I can't say that, but I can tell you that the framework is definitely alive and well. And I'm sure that a lot of you have heard about the NDAA, and if you haven't, then you need to listen and you need to actually go and research the NDAA, where it states that any American citizen can be held and detained indefinitely, and against their will. They can be held with secret evidence. It doesn't have to be seen by any sort of real court, and pretty much you can be disappeared. You can be disappeared indefinitely, and next thing you know, you're just like in the book 1984. They can do anything to you they want. Your parents, your family, none of them will see you again. In fact, it's already happened to Jose Padilla. So the point that I'm making to you here is, even though 1984 is a dystopian novel, it's something that you may think is far out there. It's not as far out there as you think. And the only thing keeping society from being that way is you. So just, take a second look, or take another look at the book if you like. Like I said, the audiobook link is down below. But really take a very, very long time to think about how society is going, and think about whether it's something you want to be around or you want your kids to be around, and try and do something about it.